Welcome to Your Creative Midlife. I'm Betsy Bush. This is the Nantucket edition. I'm wondering if you went to a summer camp as a kid where there were all sorts of new things to do and try, maybe archery or arts and crafts. Maybe you put on a show, made up skits, sang around the campfire. And maybe the best part for you was being with new people that let you be a new person doing things you might not have done at home. This is sort of what Nantucket feels like to me. Sure, you can spend your days on the beach or on the golf course, but there are also a lot of creative activities you can explore. Some you can continue when you go home, and others you'll find only on this faraway island, 30 miles off the coast of Cape Cod. My guest today is Kathi Loughlin. She's the executive director of On the Isle, the community theater group that has been presenting musicals and plays for one weekend in July for the past 30 years, Kathi?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell me the sort of what happens at On the Isle. It's this great community theater group that brings people together, and it's let's put on a show sort of thing.
Well, it's fascinating that you started your introduction to this talk with adult camp, or what did we do, and how did we play? And I think that's what On the Isle is really all about. It continues to allow people multi-generationally, so not just midlife people
Right.
like me and you, but also children, to be involved with midlife people and to have that experience of creating something together. So, that's what On the Isle is about. It uses theater as a tool, really, to knit the community together and to have people who maybe might be entirely unlikely to meet each other find a way to meet each other and to become friends.
What are some of the shows you've put on in recent years?
Oh, my goodness. We have been, first of all, On the Isle actually started in 1899 with the Actors Colony that had come from New York to Sconset, which is part of Nantucket, obviously.
Yeah, this is such a fascinating part of Nantucket history that I don't think gets enough attention.
I agree.
We're also wrapped up in the whaling ships and the whaling captains and things like that. But more recently, tell me about the Actors Colony early in the 20th century.
I'm happy to do that because that's a really big part of the reason why I'm involved. The Actors Colony, as I said, started in 1899 by some actors in New York, in Broadway. At the time, there wasn't anything called air conditioning. So the theaters went black in the summers, and these actors needed a place to find really two things, maybe three things. They needed to find privacy. They were actually some of the most well-known actors of their time. You could imagine it being George Clooney and Julia Roberts. This was the level of fame that these people had on Broadway. And so they were looking for a privacy, go somewhere where they could be themselves in every way. But they can't be themselves and just sit around and relax because that's not what they're made of. They're theater people. So they have to keep playing.
Sure.
And so they came to Sconset and they began performing for each other. And they did these performances everywhere, ad hoc, on the beach, on a porch outside a house, on the tennis court. And then they decided to build a community there because so many of them came after maybe 3 years. There were nearly 300 actors from Broadway in Sconset, and it was crazyville. I mean, it was bawdy and out there and creative, but they could escape the view of fans and the press primarily, and really be themselves here and get some rest as well. So, as it sort of morphed into this large thing, they began to buy land and build houses there. They were, many of them, very wealthy, not all of them. Many of them rented. My home is an original Actors Colony home in Sconset, but it had a back room that could sleep 4 actors. And so the actor who owned it would rent to lesser actors so that they could be here. And that stayed until so from 1899 till about 1919.
Right.
And they started to head west for the movies.
We forget that even the early days of the silence, there were movie studios in New York.
Absolutely.
So there was very East Coast oriented, and
Right.
Nantucket would be easy to get to by ship or rail.
Yeah, easy, and yet it took maybe 2 days. Yeah, in those
right,
days, because
in
they
those
did take the
days.
long ship to New Bedford,
Yeah.
and then the train, and
It can still take 2 days,
exactly,
let's be honest.
exactly, and maybe more. But that really segues nicely into the question you actually asked me, which was, what are some of the things that On the Isle has performed over the years that I've been involved?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things to talk about is the fact that we are also a company that doesn't want to just do the same thing every year. So we do a lot of different formats. We might have musicals, we might have a play, we might do a major event of some kind. And when I say event, I don't mean a gala. I'm talking about something that is a theatrical experience, but not in the way you might think of a play being. And then we, at one time, actually created our own silent movie.
Oh.
And the silent movie was a prequel to a movie that was actually filmed in Wisconsin in 1919 called Sinners. And it's really one of my favorite things to talk about because it really ties us. Our artistic director, Carl Schmale, wrote the prequel, and then we actually filmed it as a silent movie that was the pre-story of Sinners that happened with some of the greatest actors and actresses of their time. So things were actually filmed here in Wisconsin as well.
That's amazing. Can we see Sinners? Can we see that movie, or has it been lost? Is it one of these great movies that we...
It is lost. But in my home, I will show you, I have the original poster from the movie, and it's one of my prized possessions. Found it on eBay.
Wow.
But no, the movie is long since gone, unfortunately. And but our movie is available to see. Yeah.
So, I like to talk about how people in midlife can make this pivot to creative endeavors, and you yourself are one example because you were a successful advertising executive, if I understand right. You had your own firm in the DC area, and now you're doing this. Tell me about how you made that pivot.
Well, it wasn't so much of a pivot as much as a need. Once I decided to retire from advertising, came back here and to spend my summers here with my children who were young at the time, and I wanted to raise them here. It was a lovely thing, but the beach wasn't enough. And actually driving them around to their various activities was definitely not enough for me. And, being in advertising, I really started as a writer. So I thought, well, I'm just going to spend my summers writing. And I found how much I missed the collaborative experience and where could I find that? And a natural thing happened. My children were not really sports kids. While they enjoyed playing tennis at the tennis club, that wasn't really what drove them. They loved this On the Isle thing that they saw happening in the casino, which is the tennis club of Wisconsin. And they sort of pulled me into it. And so I was sort of the stage mother watching my kids perform. But then I thought as time passed, and I'm talking a lot of time, probably didn't really become involved in any leadership role in On the Isle until maybe 10 years passed. And I started to think, I think I could take this somewhere. And it seemed like the leadership at the time was looking for a transition, a way out. They had gone beyond midlife to the next level of whatever this is. And, so I stepped up and I said, I think I'd like to do this. And I think, though, I want to take it in a different direction. And I want to do harder things. I want to involve more people in the island. At the time, it was very Sconsic-centric. Now it's not at all. And so over the last 15 years, that's what I've done. And it's fed this need in me, as I said, to have a collaborative experience and to create. One of the things I loved about advertising was how I knew what I was doing could change a business, especially, for instance, some new branding customers we might have where they were starting a big company, but it wasn't there yet. and you could create a logo for them. And it was like they'd put on a new suit.
Mm.
It was like all of a sudden they stood taller. And all of a sudden it defined them and they could go out and actually present themselves. And that building of something is like just a need that is always there in me, a fire burning. And so On the Isle provides that for me, not just in the summers, like a camp experience, because I do this year round.
Right.
Involved with the director and choosing what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what we can afford. The fundraising, which also sort of naturally calls on my business abilities. So it's a perfect melding of, I think, all the things that I've learned in the process of my career, but now I get to do them in a more fun way. Not always fun, but most of the time, a lot of fun.
Well, it seems to me like you've brought a lot of your skills from your business career to this, but there is also the creative component, and also you're doing something for the wider community. I mean, you are really contributing through On the Isle and the work that On the Isle is doing. People are coming together. You have the people who are performing, and you have the people who are your audiences. I mean, you sell out every show.
We do. Well, thank you for saying that, because that's really another aspect that you call to mind, which is the legacy of preserving something that is not a building that you can put your arms around and see. It's an amorphous thing. Mm-hmm. But it is so important in my mind, because earlier when we were talking about these actors coming to Sconset, they didn't just come here and play. They built a community. They fundraised for that casino that was built there. They fundraised for the chapel and built a chapel. One of the actors opened the Chanticleer, which at the time was a ice cream parlor, but now has become a fancy restaurant. But at the time, that was what it was. And then they invested in here, and they became members of the yacht club downtown, and they really created what we see as Sconset today. On the Isle really gives me a very clear indication of where I am on the timeline of the little bit of the unit of the planet that I'm going to live on. And there I am doing that little thing. And it means a lot to me. And I think it really matters. I mean, I'll get on my soapbox, but.
No, I love it. And, for people who aren't familiar with Sconset, it's the tiny village on the very east end of the island that a lot of people don't get to when they visit Nantucket, but it has a lot of the old fishermen's cottages, not the grand houses that you'd see on Main Street in Nantucket town, but there is a charm to it that is really unsurpassed.
Yeah.
There's just something there, and a lot of the actors would live in these little cottages, right? These little summer cottages.
Exactly. Some of them were on wheels.
Oh.
Like they would have, if they needed an extra room, there was a man who owned these rooms on wheels, and he would roll the room up and just attach it to the house, however. And that would give another sleeping room.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So when you look at it, you look at these again, the openness, the creativity, the generosity that actors have. I mean, in the process, it's a special quality of actors. Another thing that I've really learned, because advertising is acting. Most of what I did was sell a campaign to a client, right? Big corporate clients, and you're up there and you are an actor. You have to really put it out there and make them be able to envision what hasn't been created yet and buy into it, right? So it was natural for me to find a way into acting, even though I'm not one of the actors, but to find my way into that process. But what I have learned in the process of working with actors, when someone says she's such a generous actor, he was so generous at that movie, I thought, what does that mean, generous? And now I can taste it. There is an openness and a lack of judgment, there's no judgment. We need to have each other's back to make the show be the best it can be. and how we help each other to get there it's a transformative thing. It has really changed me. And you can feel that in the air in Wisconsin. It's why it's what it is. It's why it's not ostentatious. It's why the houses weren't, and some of them are bigger than others, but none are grand in the way you think about that, the old houses. And that's where they came from.
It's easy to imagine in those little lanes with the tiny houses, people running back and forth and laughing and getting together around a piano or something like that. It's a really interesting thing to, kind of conjure up. You can almost see it, how it would have happened.
Totally. Totally.
I'd love to talk about who is part of your, who's in the cast, what kind of mix of people, and are some people off-islanders who are here for the summer, others are year-rounders? How does that work?
So depending on the show, obviously, and we've gotten better and better at being able to choose shows that we know will work with the cast of characters we have on island, because that's our goal, is to use islanders. We're not really interested in bringing New York here. We have Theater Workshop, we have the Nantucket Performing Arts Center. That's really what they do. We are in our own little niche. So does that mean that we never bring a ringer in? No, because if a show really requires it and we can't get that player here, we will bring someone in for it. But on the whole, and this year is a perfect example, we have 30 members of the cast, 20 crew members. We have 2 teachers. We have 2 real estate professionals. We have a nurse. We have a nanny. We have the manager of the deli department at Stop and Shop. We have a librarian. We have one of the members of the Bartlett Farm family. We have the manager of Bartlett Farms. And I know I'm forgetting. We have a contractor. I could go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these people have day jobs here and then do this in addition, because like me, they have this need to present themselves and to, again, build things together. And then, so that's sort of the on-island people. Then we have Sconset summer residents. Some of these people, we have one member of the cast who is 86 years old. He has been performing with On the Isle since he was 12. We have members of the crew who are children of these people, some of them grown children, who acted when they were younger, don't want to be on the boards anymore, but they're behind the scenes helping in different ways. So that's pretty much it. We've also brought in this year one particular actress who was a year-round resident but needed to go back home to Ohio where her mother is aging. And but coming here is like a lifeline for her to have this experience again. So, we find a way to bring her here every year for a month to be with us, because it wouldn't be the same without her. And I would still call her a Nantucketer, no matter, where she is now. So
Sure.
that's pretty much what we do. And again, the multi-generational aspect of it, this show has kids in it that are 9, and we have a gentleman who's 86. And the interaction that happens between those generations in rehearsals is something else to experience.
Tell me some of the plays you've performed in recent years. You have such an interesting range of different kinds of things you've been doing.
Try to surprise every year, right? So we've done Gilbert and Sullivan. We've done Pirates of Penzance. We've done Turn of the Screw, a mystery that we rewrote and set on Nantucket. So, there's a play, there's a musical. We've done The Dining Room, another straight-up play. And that's a lovely story because John Shea, who's here on island, a very well-known actor, opened that show on Broadway.
Oh.
And when he saw us perform it in the casino the first night, he said, I'm coming to every performance because this is better than what we did on Broadway.
Wow.
So, wonderful supporter of what we do. We've done Cinderella. And Cinderella was an adaptation that our artistic director came up with where the audience would follow the cast. And so it started in the casino with many of the scenes. it moved to the chapel where the marriage happened, and the coach went down the street. All of New Street was lit with candles, and the audience moved from one location to another.
Oh, I would have loved to have seen that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I mean, people still talk about it today. We did the Music Man, and we had a literal marching band marching down New Street with the trombones. And again, that was another one of these, performances that took place in multiple locations. What else have we done? My goodness, we've done Hair.
Oh,
Another one of my favorite shows. In that Hair, again, not wanting to do anything the way it's been done, the director took the cast and divided it between the younger group of performers and the midlife performers, those of us who actually lived in that era, right? And we sort of echoed each other. We sang to each other. And basically the older group of performers were communicating to the younger group what it was, what it really was. The hippie mythology wasn't necessarily exactly as they envision it, right? And the conversations that took place, during rehearsals with the younger people, the teenagers and the 20-year-olds who just, what was Haight-Ashbury? What was the Vietnam War? Was it really, what happened? Is this true? And to hear these conversations take place and then to see it performed with the two casts literally singing to each other, it was a beautiful piece.
I have not heard that story before, and I'm stunned by the freedom, the creativity that you're able to conjure up and utilize with your creative director, Carl.
Yeah.
And I think just the lassitude that you're able, that your audience gives you. It's like, show me what you want to do. It's a dream. It's a dream come true. And I know Carl would say this because he often says to people, I have a head of the board and I have a board that lets me do whatever I want to do. And I guess that comes out of my advertising background too, because I always believed nothing was impossible. I did not let no ever be an answer for anything. We could get it done if we wanted to, and we would find a way. And that's how I see my role in when I put my fundraising cap on. I see my role as being able to make the ideas, the vision he sees that no one else can see yet, to make that a reality for him.
Okay, hi everybody. Hi Carl. How are you?
Great.
I would like everybody to be off your music books by the end of this week.
So what are you doing this year?
Okay, so this year we are doing a play, or a musical, I should say, called Working. It's based on a book by Studs Terkel, really compiling oral histories of people in Chicago, that's where he lived, doing ordinary jobs. Ordinary Americans, normal people, doing the things that some people don't even see, and lifting up what they do, allowing them in their own voices to talk about the pride of their work.
Susan Macy.
I'm Macy. I am woman in cubicle.
Jenny Gifford, and I'm playing Nadine, the operator.
Okay.
Charmaine Eckert, and I'm playing Kate Rushton, the housewife.
And all of those oral histories were compiled by Stephen Schwartz, who did Wicked on Broadway.
And a lot of other
and
things.
a lot of other wonderful, yes.
Godspell is
God,
the other
yes,
one
yes.
that comes to mind.
Yes. He decided to write the opening number and the closing number. And then he took each one of the oral histories and he went out to various composers and said, would you like to write a couple of these? Or if you don't see a story here you love, would you like to write a new story? Because, from 1978 to now, things, there are new kinds of jobs. And so he has Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote two of the numbers that we'll do, one about a delivery boy and one about caregiver in an elder home. And then he had James Taylor write two of the pieces in the piece. So the piece has completely different sounds and feelings, except that the probably the through line is that the music is stunning and strong and bright, and we'll have a big band that will be playing, a live band with this. So it's a very exciting play, and especially at this time, I think, because I think it's nice to focus on what people do to make the patchwork of our lives come together.
Yeah, the world of work is changing so quickly.
It really is.
Yeah. There's a wonderful song. When I sat in on rehearsal last night, and there was a wonderful song, If I Could Have Been
What I Could Have Been.
What I Could Have Been, I Could Have Been Something. And it really struck a chord with me. And it's very much in line with the theme of my podcast, because I think a lot of people think if I could have been, if I didn't have to go into finance to support myself, maybe I could have been a writer, an artist, an actor, a musician.
Right.
I think there are a lot of these, if I could have if I could have followed the path I really wanted to follow, I could have been something. But maybe at midlife, it's not too late to explore those paths.
Well, I think that's what we're talking about, right? I think some of the things in this particular play that, constrict the lives of these people in particular, though, are that, they're not making Wall Street money. They're firemen and they're teachers and they're sometimes a waitress, a waitress who I love the lyrics of that particular piece because, which you didn't hear last night, she goes through this whole thing about talking about how she has taken her work to an art form. Mm. It's basically that she's almost like an actor dancing around you. She places the food on the table. You can't even hear it. She never says these words. She says these words. She makes you feel, and changes your experience for 2 hours when you're eating the food that she serves you. And then she talks about how tired she is at the end of the day, going home on the subway, and inevitably having someone say to her, "So you're just a waitress?" And her answer is, "I'm not just a waitress. I'm a one-woman show." Mm. And so, some of these people would have been something. They would have chosen otherwise if they could have, but they had to put food on the table. They had to send their kids to school.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kathi Loughlin, this has been an incredible conversation. I am so glad we had this chance to sit down together. And you told me a lot of things I didn't know. I thought I knew a lot about Sconset and On the Isle and your career as an advertising executive, but there's always something new. And I appreciate your joining me so much. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and catch up with us and all our episodes on our website, yourcreativemidlife.com.